My girlfriend mocked me in front of all her friends, constantly saying I wasn't on her level. The next day, she flew to Miami with her friend. Then she posted on social media, "My boyfriend couldn't even pay for my vacation, but I'm enjoying it anyway." I didn't say a word, just packed all her things, sent them to her parents, and blocked her. The next morning, my phone was flooded with calls. "So, look, I need to tell you about what happened with my ex, Lauren. We dated for about 2 years, and honestly, I thought things were going pretty well. I had a decent job at a tech company in the city, nothing flashy but stable. I was pulling in around 70 grand a year, which for a 26-year-old wasn't terrible. I was saving up for a house, doing the responsible thing, you know? Meanwhile, Lauren was this super outgoing girl who always had like 20 different friend groups and needed to be the center of attention wherever we went. The thing about Lauren was that she came from money, not like crazy rich, but her parents had always given her whatever she wanted growing up. She never really had to worry about budgets or saving or any of that stuff normal people deal with. And I think that created this weird disconnect between us that I didn't fully see at first. About 3 months before everything went down, we got invited to this party at some fancy loft in Manhattan. One of her college friends was throwing it, and apparently everyone who was anyone in her social circle would be there. I was planning to go with her, but then she told me Jake from her college offered to pick her up since he was heading that way anyway. Jake was this guy she always talked about. Apparently he was doing really well, had some finance job, drove a nice car, the whole package. She kept saying it would be stupid to take 2 cars when Jake was already going and had room. Made sense logically, I guess, but something about it rubbed me the wrong way. Still, I didn't want to seem insecure or controlling, so I just said sure, I'd meet her there. When I showed up to the party, the place was absolutely ridiculous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, exposed brick. The whole Instagram-worthy setup. There were probably 40 people there, all dressed like they just came from a photo shoot. I immediately felt underdressed in my button-down and jeans. I found Lauren pretty quickly. She was standing with Jake and a group of her friends, laughing at something he just said. When she saw me, she waved me over, but there was this weird energy, like I was interrupting something. Jake gave me one of those firm handshakes that guys do when they're trying to establish dominance, and I could tell he was sizing me up. The night started okay. I grabbed a beer, tried to make small talk with some of Lauren's friends. But then we all ended up sitting around this big coffee table in the living room area, and someone suggested we play this game where everyone shares embarrassing stories about their partners. Looking back, I should have just excused myself right then. Lauren went third, and man, what she said absolutely destroyed me in front of everyone. She started by talking about how Jake had picked her up in his car, some luxury SUV apparently, and how nice it was to ride in a vehicle that actually had heated seats and a premium sound system. Then she looked at me and said her boyfriend still drove the same beat-up sedan from college and refused to upgrade. Everyone kind of laughed nervously because it was getting uncomfortable, but she didn't stop there. She kept going, saying I was boring in conversations, that I couldn't talk about anything interesting or important, that I just didn't have the ambition she thought I had when we started dating. She compared me to Jake again, mentioning how he was always planning these amazing experiences and trips, while I just wanted to stay home and save money. She said all this with a smile on her face like it was just playful teasing, but I could tell she meant every word. Jake was sitting right there, barely hiding his smirk. My face was burning. I just sat there nursing my beer, trying to laugh it off, but inside I was absolutely humiliated. The worst part was how everyone reacted. Some people looked uncomfortable and changed the subject quickly, but others, especially some of her closer friends, were nodding along like they agreed with everything she was saying, like they'd all been thinking these same things about me, and were glad someone finally said it out loud. The rest of the party was a blur. I barely talked to anyone. I just wanted to leave, but Lauren was having the time of her life, bouncing between friend groups, taking photos. I noticed she spent most of the night near Jake, and he seemed to be loving the attention she was giving him. When I finally said I was heading out around midnight, she barely acknowledged me, just waved and said she'd get a ride home later. I sat in my car in the parking garage for probably 20 minutes, just processing what had happened. My girlfriend had just humiliated me in front of 40 people, compared me unfavorably to another guy, and then basically dismissed me when I tried to leave. And the crazy part was, she didn't seem to think she'd done anything wrong. She came back to my apartment around 3 in the morning. I pretended to be asleep, but I heard her come in, clearly tipsy, giggling about something on her phone. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just humiliated me in front of all her friends. When I tried to bring it up, she said I was being too sensitive, that it was just jokes, that everyone does that kind of thing at parties. But it wasn't just jokes. The way she said those things, the way she looked at Jake when she was talking, the way her friends reacted, that was all real. Those were her actual thoughts about me, and she just decided to air them publicly for entertainment. A few days later, one of our mutual friends, Mike, reached out to me. He seemed really uncomfortable, but said he needed to tell me something. Apparently, Lauren had a group chat with like 8 of her closest friends, and she'd been talking about me behind my back for weeks. Mike had been added to it recently and saw the messages. He showed me some screenshots on his phone. I'll never forget reading them. She wrote things like how I wasn't a real man, how I couldn't make big decisions, how she deserved someone who lived on her level. Someone like Jake, she specifically wrote. She complained about everything from my car in my apartment to the restaurants I chose for our dates. She even made fun of the Christmas gift I'd gotten her parents. In one message, she literally said Jake knew how to treat a woman right, and that riding in his car made her feel like she was dating an actual adult. Another message said she was getting tired of waiting for me to become someone worth staying with. Reading those messages felt like getting punched in the stomach repeatedly. This was the person I'd been planning a future with. I'd talked about buying a house, maybe getting married in a couple years. I'd been saving money specifically so we could have a better life together. And she'd been trash-talking me to her friends this whole time, making me look like some loser who wasn't good enough for her. The screenshots Mike showed me went back almost 3 months. 3 months of her complaining about me, comparing me to Jake, wishing I was more like him, and I'd had no idea. I'd been going through my daily life thinking we were building something together, while she was tearing me down behind my back. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying every interaction we'd had over the past few months, seeing them in this new light. All those little comments and suggestions she made weren't trying to help me improve. They were judgments. She'd been looking down on me this entire time, probably wishing she was with someone like Jake instead. Every time she'd suggested I get a new car, she wasn't thinking about my comfort or safety. She was embarrassed to be seen with me. Every time she'd push me to go to fancier restaurants or plan more elaborate dates, she wasn't trying to spend quality time together. She was comparing our relationship to whatever fantasy she had about being with someone wealthier. I started thinking about all the times she'd mentioned Jake over the past few months. How he'd gotten a promotion, how he bought a new watch, how he'd taken some trip to Europe. I thought she was just making conversation, talking about her friends. Now I realized she was dropping hints, trying to get me to step up my game, or maybe just reminding herself that there were better options out there. The next morning, I woke up with this strange clarity. I wasn't angry anymore, which surprised me. I was just done, completely done. The person I'd been dating for 2 years didn't actually exist. The real Lauren was someone who had no respect for me, who saw me as less than, who was probably already emotionally involved with someone else. But I knew that if I tried to talk to her about it, she'd just gaslight me or turn it around somehow. She was good at that, making me feel like I was overreacting or being too sensitive. She'd probably say the group chat messages were taken out of context, or that Jake was just a friend and I was being paranoid, or that I should be grateful she was honest about my flaws, so I could improve. So I decided right then that I wasn't going to argue or explain or try to make her understand why this hurt me. I was just going to show her through my actions that I was done. No big dramatic breakup scene where she could cry and promise to change. No long conversation where she could manipulate me into staying. Just cold, calculated distance. I started thinking about the logistics. A lot of her stuff was at my apartment. She gradually moved in over the past year, bit by bit. Clothes in my closet, toiletries in my bathroom, her laptop at my desk, books on my shelves. I'd need to deal with all of that, and I need to make sure she couldn't just walk back into my life whenever she felt like it. For the first time in days, I felt like I had some control back. I wasn't just going to sit here and take her disrespect anymore. I wasn't going to be the boring, unambitious boyfriend she complained about to her friends. I was going to be the guy who knew his worth and walked away from someone who couldn't see it. That day, I started making a plan. Not out of anger or revenge, really, but just pure self-respect. I couldn't be with someone who clearly had no respect for me, who was probably already emotionally involved with someone else, and who felt the need to humiliate me publicly. I deserved better than that, and I was finally ready to act on that knowledge. Lauren had been talking about wanting to take a trip to Miami for months. She'd hinted pretty heavily that she wanted me to help pay for it, but I'd always dodge a question because I was saving for our future. Well, about a week after I found out about those group chat messages, she dropped a bomb on me. She was going to Miami anyway, with Jake, just as friends. She said, because he had points or miles or whatever and could get them both cheap flights and hotel rooms. The way she told me this was so calculated. She was testing me, waiting to see if I'd get jealous or try to stop her or suddenly offer to take her myself. I just said, okay, have fun, and went back to watching TV. The look on her face was priceless. She actually seemed disappointed, like she wanted me to fight for her or something. She kept pushing, talking about how Jake was such a good friend for doing this, how it would be nice to get away and relax, how she really needed this after being so stressed lately. I just nodded along. Inside, I was already executing the plan I'd been thinking about for days. Her going away for 10 days was actually perfect timing. It would give me the space I needed to do what had to be done without any drama or confrontation. The day before she left, she was at my apartment packing and kept going on about how excited she was. She made sure to mention several times that Jake had planned this whole itinerary of beach clubs and fancy restaurants. She said he was paying for most of it because he wanted to treat her right. The implication was crystal clear. I wasn't treating her right, but Jake would. I just smiled and told her to have a great time. She looked almost frustrated by my lack of reaction. That night, after she went to sleep, I lay awake going over my plan one more time. Tomorrow, everything would change. The morning she left for the airport, I drove her there myself. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, but I wanted to make sure she was really gone before I started anything. She kept checking her phone in the car, probably texting Jake about meeting up at the gate or whatever. When I dropped her off at departures, she gave me this quick kiss and said she'd see me in 10 days. As soon as I saw her walk through those doors, I turned the car around and headed straight back to my apartment. I had a lot of work to do and not much time to waste. First stop was a hardware store to buy a bunch of boxes and packing tape. I spent the entire day boxing up every single thing that belonged to her. And I mean everything. Clothes, shoes, makeup, hair products, books, random decorations she brought over, photos of us together, everything. I was methodical about it, labeling each box with what was inside. By evening, I had 12 boxes stacked in my living room. I called a shipping company and arranged for them to be picked up the next day and delivered to her parents' house. Then I wrote a note to include with the shipment. I kept it short and simple. Just said I thought it was best if her parents held on to her things, that I couldn't continue a relationship where I was constantly disrespected and compared to other people. The next morning, the shipping company came and took all the boxes away. As soon as they left, I called a locksmith. 2 hours later, I had brand new locks on my apartment door. New deadbolt, new handle, new everything. It cost me almost $300, but it was worth every single penny for the peace of mind. Then I did something that felt really good. I went through my phone and deleted every photo of us together, cleared out our text conversations, removed her from my social media, blocked her number. I wanted a clean break, no traces left behind. Meanwhile, Lauren's social media was going absolutely crazy. She'd posted a photo from the airport with Jake, both of them holding Starbucks cups and smiling. The caption was something about new adventures and being treated right. Over the next few days, the posts kept coming. Expensive hotel rooms with ocean views. fancy dinners at restaurants I couldn't even pronounce, beach clubs with bottle service. And Jake was in almost every single photo. Her captions were the worst part. One said something like, "finally being appreciated." Another mentioned how some people know how to make a woman feel special, while others just make excuses. She was clearly throwing shade at me for her friends to see. But here's the thing. I didn't respond to any of it. She'd send me texts with photos from the trip, usually with Jake prominently featured, and I wouldn't reply. She'd call, and I'd let it go to voicemail. The silence was intentional and calculated. I knew for someone like Lauren, someone who needed constant attention and validation, my silence would eat at her more than any angry text or jealous phone call ever could. On day 3 of her trip, she started getting worried. Her texts changed from casual updates to questions about why I wasn't responding. Was I okay? Was something wrong? Why was I being so quiet? I ignored all of them. By day 5, she was calling multiple times a day, leaving voicemails asking what was going on, saying she was getting concerned. That this wasn't like me. I could hear the anxiety in her voice. She probably spent the first few days of the trip feeling smug about posting all those photos with Jake, thinking I was sitting at home jealous and miserable. Now she was realizing something was actually wrong. I spent those 10 days deep cleaning my apartment, rearranging furniture, basically erasing any trace that she'd ever been there. I bought new throw pillows for the couch because the old ones reminded me of her, changed my sheets, even got rid of some kitchen stuff she'd picked out. It was therapeutic, honestly. On day 7, she sent me a long text. Said she didn't understand why I was ignoring her, that we needed to talk when she got back, that she was having fun but missed me. The miss me part made me laugh out loud. She was literally on vacation with another guy, posting photos that made it look like they were dating, and now she missed me? I finally sent one text back. Just said we'd talk when she got home. Nothing more. That probably stressed her out even more, because it wasn't angry or emotional, just cold and distant. She immediately tried to call, but I didn't answer. The last few days of her trip, her social media posts changed tone. Fewer photos with Jake, more solo shots or group photos with other people they'd apparently met. Her captions weren't as pointed anymore. I think reality was starting to sink in that maybe she'd pushed things too far. On the day she was flying back, she sent me her flight information and asked if I could pick her up from the airport. I texted back saying I couldn't, that I had plans. She asked what plans, and I just said I'd see her soon. I knew she'd have to get an Uber or call Jake or whatever. Not my problem anymore. That evening, my phone started blowing up. First it was texts, then calls, then more texts. She'd gone to her parents' house first, probably drop off her luggage, and found all 12 boxes stacked in their garage. Her parents had apparently accepted the delivery without opening them or asking questions. She was freaking out. The texts were all over the place. What did this mean? Why did I send her stuff to her parents? Why wasn't I answering? She needed to talk to me right now. This was crazy. I couldn't just do this without talking to her first. But I didn't respond. I'd already said everything I needed to say in that note I included with the boxes. After about an hour of nonstop messages, she said she was coming to my apartment, that we needed to talk face to face, that this was ridiculous and I was being childish. I texted back one sentence, told her not to bother coming over because her key wouldn't work anymore, that I'd changed the locks. Then I turned my phone off completely and went to bed. Best sleep I'd had in months, honestly. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my own life again. The next morning was going to be interesting. The morning after Lauren got back from Miami, I woke up to literally 63 messages and 14 missed calls. I scrolled through them while drinking my coffee. They ranged from angry to confused to desperate to angry again. She demanded I let her in to get her stuff. Then she'd remember her stuff was already at her parents' house. Then she'd demand an explanation. Then she'd say I was being unreasonable and we needed to talk like adults. I didn't respond to any of them. I got ready for work like it was any normal day. And honestly, it felt pretty normal. Actually, it felt better than normal. I felt lighter somehow. When I got to the office, There was an emergency meeting call for all senior staff. Our director, Robert, had been with the company for almost 15 years. Apparently over the weekend, the executives had discovered some serious financial irregularities. Robert had been falsifying expense reports, approving fake vendor invoices, basically embezzling money from the company for the past 2 years. The whole office was in shock. Robert had always seemed like a straight arrow, real company man type. But I guess everyone has their secrets. He was fired immediately, and they were talking about pressing charges. The whole thing was a mess. What made it messier was that our department was in the middle of 3 major projects with tight deadlines. Without a director, everything was about to fall apart. The executives went into crisis mode, trying to figure out who could step up and take over. Here's the thing, though. For the past year, I'd basically been doing half of Robert's job anyway. He was lazy and would dump work on me constantly. I'd been the one actually managing timelines, checking reports, coordinating with other departments, dealing with client communications. Robert would just show up to meetings and take credit for everything. So, when the VP called me into her office that afternoon, I already knew what was coming. She asked if I'd be willing to step into the director role temporarily while they figured things out. I said yes immediately. Why wouldn't I? I was already doing the work. They made it official the next day. Interim director with a $20,000 raise while they conducted a proper search for a permanent replacement. But the VP also said if I did well, the job was mine to keep. The permanent director position paid about $130,000 base, plus bonuses and stock options. I threw myself into the work. Finally had the authority to make decisions without Robert blocking everything. I restructured how we handled projects, fixed processes that had been broken for years, started holding people accountable. Within 2 weeks, all 3 of those critical projects were back on track. Meanwhile, Lauren was losing her mind. She showed up at my apartment building twice that first week. The doorman called me both times, and I told him not to let her up. She'd stand outside for like an hour, calling me, then eventually leave. She left notes under my door. Long handwritten letters about how we needed to talk, how I was being unfair, how she deserved a chance to explain. Explain what exactly? That she didn't mean all those things she said about me to her friends? That her vacation with Jake was totally innocent? That publicly humiliating me at that party was just a joke? There was nothing to explain. I'd seen who she really was. Mike told me she'd been posting on social media about how she was going through something difficult. Vague posts about betrayal and confusion. Her friends were commenting asking if she was okay. She was playing the victim, which was predictable. I blocked her on everything, so I only knew about this stuff because Mike would screenshot things and send them to me. 3 weeks after she got back from Miami, the executives made my director position permanent. The $130,000 salary plus a signing bonus of $15,000 and stock options that vested over 4 years. At 26 years old, I was now making almost double what I'd been making when Lauren left for Miami. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd spent 2 years complaining that I wasn't ambitious enough, wasn't successful enough, wasn't making enough money. And the moment I cut her out of my life, everything fell into place. It was like she'd been holding me back, and I hadn't even realized it. I celebrated by finally upgrading my car. Traded in my old sedan for a certified pre-owned Audi. Nothing crazy, but nice enough that I felt good driving it. New job, new car, new life. Everything was moving in the right direction. Lauren found out about my promotion somehow. Maybe she'd driven by my office and saw my new parking spot with my name on it. Maybe one of our mutual friends told her. Either way, she started texting again. This time the messages were different. She was congratulating me, saying she always knew I had potential, asking if we could meet up to talk about everything. The shift in her tone was so transparent, it was almost funny. When she thought I was still the same guy making $70,000 and driving a beat-up car, she couldn't get away from me fast enough. Now that I had a director title and a nice car, suddenly she wanted to talk. Suddenly she remembered all my good qualities. I didn't respond, but I did something petty that I'm not super proud of but also don't regret. I posted a photo of my new car on social media with a caption about new beginnings. First post I'd made in over a month. Within an hour, Lauren had liked it and commented asking how I'd been. Mike told me she'd been having problems with Jake. Apparently the Miami trip had convinced her they had something special. But Jake had basically ghosted her after they got back. He was seeing someone else, someone from his finance world who matched his lifestyle. Lauren had been a fun vacation fling for him, nothing more. So now she was alone, realizing she'd blown up a 2-year relationship for a guy who was never actually interested in anything serious with her. And the boyfriend she'd thrown away had suddenly become exactly the kind of successful person she'd always wanted. About 6 weeks after she got back, she showed up at my office, just walked right into the building, and asked the receptionist for me. The receptionist called my desk, and I told her to send Lauren away. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a face-to-face conversation where she could try to manipulate me. But Lauren didn't leave. She sat in the lobby for 3 hours. When I finally left work that evening, she was still there. She followed me to my car in the parking garage, started talking fast about how sorry she was, how she made a terrible mistake, how she wanted another chance. I unlocked my car and got in without saying a word. She was standing at my window talking, and I just started the engine and backed out, watching her in my rear-view mirror, standing there in the parking garage looking lost. I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no sadness, just nothing. That's when I knew I was really over it. She'd become irrelevant to my life, a problem I'd already solved and moved past. And that feeling was better than any revenge could have been. After that parking garage incident, I thought maybe Lauren would finally get the message and leave me alone. I was wrong. If anything, my silence and indifference seemed to make her more determined. It was like she couldn't handle the fact that I'd moved on without her. The messages started coming from different numbers. She'd text from her friends' phones, probably thinking I wouldn't recognize her writing style. "Hey, it's me. Please just talk to me for 5 minutes." Or, "I know you're angry, but we had 2 years together. That has to mean something." I blocked every new number that popped up. It became almost a game. Then she started showing up places she knew I'd be. My gym, this coffee shop I went to on Saturday mornings, even my favorite lunch spot near the office. It was borderline stalking, honestly. She pretended to be surprised to see me, like, "Oh wow, what a coincidence," and try to start a conversation. I just put my headphones in or walked past her without acknowledgement. The look on her face each time was a mixture of hurt and frustration. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Then I'd remember all those group chat messages, the party humiliation, the vacation with Jake, and the sympathy would evaporate. Mike told me she'd been asking mutual friends about me constantly. What was I up to? Was I seeing anyone? Did I ever mention her? The friends who actually cared about me told her to back off. But some of her closer friends apparently thought I was being too harsh, that everyone makes mistakes and I should at least hear her out. Around this time, I started seeing someone new. Jessica worked in a different department at my company. We went on a few dates, kept things casual, but I posted a photo of us at a restaurant on my social media. Nothing romantic, just 2 people having dinner, but it was clear I was on a date. Lauren saw it within minutes. My phone started blowing up immediately. Mike started getting frantic messages from her asking who this girl was, how long I'd been seeing her, if I'd been cheating on Lauren. The mental gymnastics required to think I'd been the one cheating were honestly impressive. She'd literally gone on vacation with another guy, and now she was accusing me of infidelity? Things escalated about a week later. I came home from work to find Lauren sitting on the floor outside my apartment door. She'd somehow gotten past the doorman. She looked terrible. Hair messy, makeup smudged like she'd been crying, wearing sweatpants and a hoodie. She stood up when she saw me, and I could tell she'd been rehearsing what she wanted to say. She started talking about how she'd made the biggest mistake of her life, how she'd spent every day for the past 2 months regretting what she'd done, how she'd give anything for another chance. She said Jake had meant nothing to her, that it was just a stupid ego boost. I stood there with my keys in my hand, waiting for her to finish. When she finally stopped talking, I asked her one question. Did she think I was stupid? She looked confused. I continued. Did she really think I'd forgotten everything she said about me to her friends? Every comparison to Jake? The party humiliation? The vacation photos? Did she think I was so desperate that I'd just take her back now that Jake had rejected her and I'd gotten successful? She started crying harder, saying people make mistakes. I told her mistakes are accidental. What she did was deliberate. She knew exactly what she was doing when she disrespected me to her friends, when she got in Jake's car, when she booked that Miami trip. I walked past her and unlocked my door. She grabbed my arm, begging me not to go inside without giving her a real conversation. I pulled my arm away and told her if she showed up at my building again, I'd call the police. Then I went inside and closed the door. I could hear her crying in the hallway for about 10 minutes before she finally left. The next day, she sent one final message from yet another new number. It was long and rambling, but the gist was that she understood I'd never take her back. She said she'd stop trying to contact me, that she'd leave me alone, but losing me was the biggest regret of her life. I didn't respond, but I did screenshot the message, just as proof in case she didn't actually stop and I needed a restraining order. Mike told me later that week that Lauren had apparently started seeing a therapist. Good for her, honestly. That wasn't my problem to solve, though. I'd moved on, and I was genuinely happier than I'd been in years. Things stayed quiet for about 3 months after that. No random sightings, no new phone numbers, no drama. Life went on, and honestly, I barely thought about her anymore. Work was going great. My team had landed 2 major new clients. I'd started seriously looking at houses in the suburbs. Jessica and I had amicably decided we were better as friends. No drama, just 2 people who realized they wanted different things. Then one Saturday afternoon, I was at the grocery store when I literally ran my cart into someone coming around the corner. It was Lauren. She looked different, healthier somehow. She cut her hair shorter, dressed more casually than I'd ever seen her. No makeup, just jeans and a plain t-shirt. For a split second, she looked like she might panic and run away. But then she took a breath and said hi. I said hi back. We stood there awkwardly for a moment. Then she apologized for the cart collision and started to move past me. But something made me stop and call her name. She turned around, looking nervous. I asked how she'd been. She seemed surprised but said she was doing okay, working on herself, seeing a therapist regularly. There was another awkward pause. Then she said she was glad I seemed to be doing well, that she'd seen my promotion announcement on LinkedIn. She said she was genuinely happy for me, that I deserved it, and it actually seemed sincere, not manipulative, just genuine. I thanked her and said I hoped she was doing better too. Then we went our separate ways. The whole interaction lasted maybe 2 minutes, but it felt significant, like a final chapter closing properly. Driving home, I realized I felt completely neutral during that conversation. No anger, no bitterness. She was just someone I used to know, someone who taught me an important lesson about self-respect. That evening, Mike called to catch up. I mentioned running into Lauren. He got quiet, then asked if I wanted to know what she'd been up to. He told me she'd completely changed her social circle, dropped most of those friends from the group chat. She'd been working with her therapist on why she needed constant external validation. Mike said she'd also reached out to him to apologize for putting him in the middle of our drama. She wasn't trying to get back together with me. She just wanted to apologize to the people she'd hurt. Part of me wondered if this was just another performance, but another part thought maybe people actually can change when they hit rock bottom and decide to do the work. Not that it mattered to me either way. My life had moved on completely. I'd learned that you can't save a relationship with someone who doesn't respect you. I'd learned that sometimes the right move is to walk away silently instead of trying to argue your way to understanding. So that's my story, folks. What do you think? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to walk away from someone who didn't respect you? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. It really helps us keep creating content. And if you've got your own story to share, drop it in the comments. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.